In this video, you're gonna learn how to read sheet music as a beginner piano player. I'm gonna be breaking it down from scratch in a simple, easy to understand way. Let's go. So in sheet music, there are three main parts that you wanna learn individually. The first part is the notes, second part is the rhythm, and the third part are what I like to call the extras. Now, I did wanna warn you about something. One of the big mistakes that I see beginners make is trying to read and understand all parts of sheet music right from the beginning. And then it just gets overwhelming, you don't see much progress, you'll probably feel frustrated with sheet music, and I don't want that for you. You can read sheet music, you just have to know how to break it into its individual parts so that you can learn it. So let's break down these parts individually, starting with the notes. So here's a sample sheet of music. You're gonna notice that there are two sections to it. So we have the top section there that have 5 lines, and then we have the bottom section, which also has 5 lines. Now you'll notice with the top section that we have this special sign, it's called the treble clef, and then with the bottom section, we have what we call the bass clef. Altogether, this is the grand staff, and your right hand follows that top portion. Your right hand's gonna be looking at the top portion, and your left hand is gonna be following the bottom portion. Notes are written in the grand staff on either a line or in a space, like a space in between the lines. And each note on the staff represents a key on the piano. So for example, this note right here is middle C. So it's in the treble clef. I know I'm gonna be using my right hand. I would come to my piano and I would play middle C, the C that's in the middle of the piano. Now notes are always moving either up or down on the staff. And all that means is when the note starts to move up, it's gonna get higher. So it's gonna start to get a higher pitch and you're gonna move to the right on your piano. When the note goes down, you're going to get a lower pitch and you're gonna move to the left. So anytime you go up, you're gonna go to the right on the piano. Anytime you go down on the staff, you are gonna be going to the left. And that's really important because you don't just wanna see the notes on the music as just random dots here and there, but you wanna be able to follow how the notes are moving so that you can get more fluid at reading and playing at the same time. We're gonna start with just that top section first, which is gonna tell your right hand exactly what to play. Okay, so let's read and play some notes together. So the very first note that you're gonna learn is middle C. It's the easiest one to pick out. It's in the middle of the piano. We know that we're gonna use our right hand because it's in the treble clef. So anytime you see that note, you would play middle C. So we can see we just moved up one step, up to the very next key, which is D. We can keep going to the next line and play E, and then F, and then G. So notice that when we step like this, we're following a pattern. We're going line to the next space, to the next line, to the next space, to the next line. All right, so notes are usually pretty easy to read when they're stepping like this, but what happens if they're not stepping? Let's take a look at this example. You can see that we're starting on C, and then we're skipping all the way up to G. All right, and you can see how the distance on the music represents the distance between the keys on the piano, all right? So that helps us to be able to kind of make sense of how the music is related to the keys on the piano. So that's the top section where your right hand is playing. Now the bottom section is similar in that we still have notes that are either on lines or spaces, but the notes change a little bit. And this is often where beginners get really confused. So stick with me. I promise this will make sense. Okay, so notice that for this G in the treble clef, we played it on the second line from the bottom. Now, if we were to come to our bottom section, our bass clef section with our left hand, and draw a note on the second line from the bottom, you might think that it would also be a G. So it could be this G or this G, but it's not. And here's why. It all comes back to middle C. Middle C in the bottom section looks like this. Very similar, right? So we could play middle C right here. And from here, we can start moving down, right? So we're gonna start moving down. You can see it in your music moving down. We're gonna move to the left on the piano. So this would be B, and then we can keep moving down to A, and then we can keep moving down to G, and then we can keep moving down to F. If I were to keep going all the way down, I would discover that in the bass clef, if I were to play the second line from the bottom, it would actually be B. So this is something that you want to watch out for because it's not exactly the same in the bass clef. It follows this same pattern of line, space, line, space, line, space, but it's going to look a little bit different in the bass clef versus the treble clef. Another thing to know with reading sheet music is that we're always reading our music left to right, just like we would read. And we're always playing both sections at the same time. So it's not like we're just reading our right hand and then we're reading our left hand separately. But when we're playing a song or a piece, we're playing them at the same time. So we're moving from left to right through our music together. So let's do an example of playing notes, reading from left to right, and reading both clefs, both sections simultaneously. So if you were to start this from the beginning, you'd notice that we just have C. Okay, so you just play 2 C's, and then notice we're layering on G. So this is G right here. So then you would play these two together. Notice we don't have anything in the bass clef. So left hand isn't doing anything. We just started right hand, and then we kept going with right hand. Now notice, once we get to the next part, we have a left hand note in there, and that left hand note is just F. So that's the F down here. Now we're going to play them simultaneously because they're right on top of each other there. So we would play, okay? So remember, you start reading from left to right. So we just read just our right hand, and then we added in another note with our right hand, and then we kept layering and we added in left hand like this. Now, when you're first getting started with learning the notes on the staff, it can feel overwhelming and confusing to try to remember every single note. But don't worry, you actually don't need to know every single note. You just need to know certain key notes that will help you read all the other notes so much faster. I've got another video on exactly which key notes to know. I'm gonna link that down below, and I'll post it at the end of this video so you can go and watch that next. Second part to sheet music is the rhythm. And for rhythm, there's really only 2 things that you need to know: measures and the time signature. The time signature are just the numbers or the fraction at the beginning of your sheet music that's beside the treble clef and the bass clef. The time signature tells us how we're going to count the music so that we get the correct rhythm. So let's break down these numbers. The top number tells us how many counts or beats are inside each measure. So for 4/4, which is the most common time signature for beginner piano music, the top number is 4. So we're gonna count to 4 inside each measure. So for example, for a song or a piece that's in 4/4, you would count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be the beat for the song or the piece. Now the bottom number tells you what kind of note is gonna get 1 count. So the 4 stands for 1/4, which stands for a quarter. So in 4/4, the quarter note is gonna get 1 count. Inside each measure, we would have 4 quarter notes. So just to recap, in 4/4, you'll count to 4 in each measure. And the quarter note you're going to hold for 1 beat or count. So basically all you really need to know for beginner sheet music is that in 4/4, you're gonna count to 4 inside each measure. If you take nothing else from this rhythm section, that's really all you need to know at the beginning. Now the quarter note is a pretty common type of note, but there are lots of different kinds of notes in rhythm. I go into a lot more detail in my beginner piano course play, but I'm gonna go over just a couple basic rhythms you need in order to start playing beginner music. We started out with the quarter note, which just gets 1 count. So you'll see some notes written up there. We've got middle C and G. We're using just our right hand, and we're just gonna count this out how we would play it. So we play 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it changes 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice that the top note changed so that I was playing C and E instead of C and G. So that's how we would count the quarter note. Now, if we double the quarter note, we get a half note. And a half note, we're gonna hold for 2 counts. So we're still gonna count the same beat. So we're still gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4. Just notice that I held it for 2 counts each. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the half half note. Now, if we double the half note, we get a whole note, which we're gonna hold for 4 counts. So we're still counting the same way, but we're holding out our notes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've been doing examples with the right hand, but this works exactly the same with the left hand. When we're counting rhythm, there's no difference between the treble clef or the bass clef, right hand or left hand. So as you can see, we're adding in another level of complexity to our music when we add in the rhythm, because now you're not just looking at the note, but you're also having to look at the note and figure out how long or how short to hold it. This is why I'm gonna sound like a broken record, I know, but when you're first starting to read sheet music, you only wanna focus on one of these at a time. Focus on the notes and then the rhythm. You could even start with the rhythm and then go to the notes. It really doesn't matter, but only focus on one at a time and then layer them together. And finally, you're ready for the third part of sheet music, which is what I like to call the extras. Now, there are a lot of extras in music, a lot of signs that you're gonna see written into sheet music that I'm not gonna take the time to go into, because you really wanna learn all of these inside sheet music that you're working on. Otherwise, it will just be me throwing up all these musical terms and you probably won't remember them. So once you have a good foundation of the notes and the rhythm, then you can start to learn more of these inside the music that you're working on. I do want to show you just a couple of the most common ones so you can see some examples of how this might show up in your sheet music. So if you see this sign, it means piano. It means that you're going to play your music softly. If you see this sign, it stands for forte. It means that you're going to play your music loudly. And then this sign is a crescendo. And this one's really fun because it means that you're going to start soft and then you're gradually gonna get louder. So if you're just getting started reading sheet music and you're like, whoa, 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 that was a lot, here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to try and learn all of this all at once. Trust me, it is a recipe for disaster and overwhelm, and I don't want that to happen to you. Instead, focus on reading and playing just the notes in your music first. I'm gonna put a video here for you to go watch next. It includes my quick and easy method for how to read and remember the notes in your music. I'll see you over there.